Hey, everybody! We did it! We somehow managed to not be a half an hour late this week, and I'm producing, which is really kind of effing crazy. How's everybody doing tonight? We have a special guest. We've got Lux.
Hello. Hope everybody's doing good
Yes.
tonight.
And it's a wonderful night for you to join us because it's our 25th episode.
Woohoo!
Hell yeah.
We're just rolling along here.
We're rolling right along. 25 episodes live from TransPositions Weekly. It's a milestone. I think most of our audience is still over at Transatlantic College just yet though, because
Yeah.
they started a little bit later tonight. So, but they got Ben and Josie over there. That's a good time. So I get it. But we got Lux,
We got Lux.
which I
Yes,
think is
indeed.
We got
awesome.
Lucky with Lux. There we go. Yeah, well, I've got a promise from Arden that she's gonna
Send them our way.
send them our way when they get done. So we'll see if that happens at some point in time. We might have a huge influx. Meanwhile,
Look at
we're
this influx
hoping
we
that,
just got here.
there's Carly.
Yeah.
Are you in
Yay!
your new home?
Hell
Carly's
yeah.
been moving
And
the last couple of weeks, so it's been kind of touch and go to get things on track for them. She's
Hello.
hey girl,
Hello.
how's things going?
By the way, the pronouns are she, her. Let's get that right one. Number two. All right. So, number two, just putting the finishing touches on transposition sports. We were able to get a great interview at the last minute.
sweet.
Cool.
We were able to
Nice.
get a great interview at the last minute with
Would you like
Valentina
to?
Petrillo.
There we
Ooh.
go.
Mhm.
How about that? So stick
That's
around for the sports segment
With Valentina Petrillo. Interviewed her this morning, and literally having to cut and literally cutting like a 45-minute interview down to about 20. But it's
A
going to
lot
be
of
an
work.
excellent.
girl.
Alexander, good to see you.
Good to see you, Carly.
And good to see you. Ember, great to see you. And just a little bit of note, after this week, we're going to take a 1-week hiatus to move everything into the new Shar Sports One Super Studio. We are going to build where we are going to build we're going to build a cross between the NFL Today and the View. It is going to be functional, but also very frilly. It is going to be it is going to be the highest level in high technology and high fem working together. So that's coming up in sports along with a few other items to get at. We have a wrestling item. We have the latest on what happened in New Hampshire, and good on a school district in New Hampshire saying we're just because the state is going to legalize discrimination doesn't mean we're going to. And I hope that a lot of other school districts across this country follow suit as well. And we're also going to look at the race to be the next president of the IOC. It looks like
Aha.
it looks like trans people will now get their Avery Brundage. That's coming up in Transposition Sports.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cool stuff.
Cannot wait.
And hello to everybody joining from over on my channel. My premiere just ended, and I see a bunch of people here from over there. I'm so glad you came. If it's your first time here, first of all, I hope you enjoy. And second, hit the subscribe button because not only are we live every Thursday, but there's bits and pieces throughout the week that we hope you'll enjoy.
Yeah. We'll take some
Cool, cool,
highlights
cool.
and some special content that comes along the way. Yeah, as things break. Absolutely. Uh
We are
well,
good at breaking things.
uh you're not wrong. But last week we were a little slow getting going, but this week we got things right off the tracks. That we're using a new
Yeah.
studio program because as many creators are banding together to kind of do hey, StreamYards, if you're gonna jack up your prices, we'll go elsewhere. So, I mean, what are you gonna do? So here we are. So far, I'm liking this setup. Not too shabby. Couple of things
Yeah,
here.
our previous setup was basically Bree using StreamYard as a base and then running everything through OBS Streamlabs. So this is Streamlabs Talk Studio. So there's a certain degree of familiarity going on here, and it's so far we're liking it.
Yeah, and they talk to each
But
other.
it only
so
took
it's nice.
it only took Bree and me hanging out all afternoon to just figure out where the glitches would be.
Yeah.
That's one of them for some reason or another. If you're a co-host, your avatar looks like poo for some
It's
reason, and you
this. It's
can't
this
change
weird.
it.
You know,
It's
I'm just gonna
totally
pretend it's a
stupid.
blue. It's an owl. I'm gonna pretend it's an owl.
It does look
so
like
is
the
this
NPC
avatar
meme,
business.
though.
It does
So
look like
there.
NPC. I don't want to be an NPC there. Yeah, Ember's
Yeah.
glittery, and I'm not gonna go off screen
Ember's-
at all. So I'm fine here.
Yeah.
The only reason I went off just there was to show you all how ugly my avatar is, and I'm unhappy about it. And I'm gonna complain.
I've never liked those avatars. They're tiny little circle, but you know what? We're way the hell off topic. We've got so much to talk about today. First of all, while we have the whole panel with everybody, with Lux here, I really wanted to ask about Lux. You are moving. You're heading to a different state, one where there's rights for trans people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm from Kansas, born and raised, and if people haven't been keeping track of, because there's so much anti-trans news all across the country, it's easy to miss stuff. So Kansas has they attempted to restrict abortion rights. The voters came out and protected abortion rights, and then our Supreme Court recently determined, in the state Supreme Court, determined that according to our constitution in the state of Kansas, we don't have the right to vote. So any restrictions on voting are legal as long as it doesn't breach the one amendment that has to do with you being a woman and the other amendment that has to do with you being black. Like, those are federal amendments. And then also there has been movement against trans people and trans rights. In particular, this one law passed that double whammy, it has basically reverted any previous gender marker changes. So, like, if you had it done before, they're not going to steal your ID, but the next time you go to get it renewed, they're going to revert it back to what you were born as. And also, they created a list of people who have changed their gender marker before, and that's on Chris Kobach's desk, which is great. As somebody
a
who did
list
that
of
before.
undesirables. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know that happened more recently in Texas, so y'all may have heard that it happened in Texas. But yeah, Kansas somehow is more conservative than Texas on this one. And then simultaneously in that same bill, it created bathroom restrictions. So in the state where I was born, I am legally required to use the bathroom of the gender I was assigned at birth, which, I don't necessarily have a problem doing outside of the legal necessity of it. I'm the kind of person who just I'm like, oh, what do I think I look like today? What do I think I'm going to get the least amount of harassment for today? So, but having the option taken away means that, no matter what bathroom I use now, and especially if I use the bathroom that I'm supposed to, there's increased scrutiny and the risk of being arrested is quite high, or even just harassed, accosted, any of that stuff. So for those reasons, I'm moving to the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon area, and those places are generally considered to be good for trans rights. They have better access to healthcare. And obviously there's rural areas no matter where you go. Like if you were to move into the eastern side of Washington, that's quite rural, but it's nice to have those areas where there's more queer people sort of concentrated. So those are the political reasons that I'm basically fleeing the state that I was born in order to have a more fair opportunity in life, and to feel safer and to materially be safer. So that's a lot of fun. Oh, Stephanie, you're muted.
Thing's supposed to remind me when I'm,
Yeah.
but it didn't. Learning all the time. I was pretty lucky to have been born in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. God
Mhm.
save the Commonwealth.
Absolutely.
And so the whole changing documents thing was easy even 26 years ago, and it's only gotten better.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, and that's really cool. And the great state of Maine is a wonderful place as well. It's a small place, but there's a pretty vibrant LGBTQIA plus community here. Uh, so there's no reason for me to move, except that a week from Monday is my last day in this location, and I don't know where I'm going yet. So I'm also somewhat harem scarum. I'm trying to find a couch or something, or a place to set up all this equipment so that we can keep doing this.
Mhm.
But anyway, that's my situation. But yeah, I certainly I think, and let me know what your thoughts on this. I think this is why we need national legislation that protects our rights
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
unifies these procedures throughout the country. This is ridiculous when you have 28 states with various laws on the books at this point in time, screwing around with people's. You want to talk identity politics? This is identity politics, and it's something that we shouldn't have to be dealing with.
Yeah. I mean, I know that every time I talk about this with Josie over on the Transatlantic show, she's like, yeah, we're working on the Equal Rights Act or something, the Equality Act, whatever it's called. So there is talk of this happening. It's just I feel that everything is so precarious on the federal level. Um, Obviously things are precarious on the state level. Like, this has been the case with abortion for such a long time that your rights are sort of dependent on your zip code. Like literally just do you have the right to very basic healthcare access? Depends on where you live. So it would be great to see some federal movement on this. It's just really hard to say, first of all, whether we're going to have the combined House and Senate in order to pass a law, or if an executive order comes through, that can just be undone by the next Republican president who comes in. And then there's our lovely federal Supreme Court right now, which is going to be hearing the issue of 14th Amendment protections sometime in not this legislative session, but sometime in this judicial session, which starts in like October and then goes through July. And according to people who know these things, like often with these type of rulings, they don't meet about them until fairly late in the season. So I'm basically expecting during Pride next year to hear that trans people do not have 14th Amendment protections, which, and like that's pessimistic. And I recognize that that's pretty pessimistic. But I just feel like it's so wishy washy that this court, I mean, I guess to be fair, Kavanaugh was on the court when they did this recent employment protections and like
Bostock, yeah.
yeah, so the employment
But
protections extend under Title VII,
Mhm.
and so I guess it would be abnormal for somebody like Kavanaugh to undo his own precedent so soon after setting it.
well,
But
that was
yeah,
actually Neil Gorsuch that wrote
was it?
that wrote
Who wrote the
wrote
opinion?
the majority decision, and it was a 6-3 decision. So there is hope.
But I think the children
Unfortunately,
aspect of it, because it's a case about children, that there have been cases in the past where children are ruled to not have the same rights and protections as adults. Um, so it's just hard to say how things are going to go. I'm obviously not super optimistic about it. We do need federal protections. It's just a matter of like whether we're going to get them, which is why
it's
I'm moving to a progressive state because I feel better with the local protections.
It's hard to be optimistic with the Supreme Court the way it looks right now about anything that gets pushed up to the federal level. And that's what they're doing with all these. I mean, there was a lot of state shenanigans in Missouri and Oklahoma, obviously Texas and Florida, but to try to get things up to the Supreme Court so that that conservative Supreme Court could have a shot at legislating against, basically legislating queer people's rights away and such, but or women's rights away, as what we saw happen with Roe.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
but
it's happening
Yeah.
all over, which is crazy.
Wow, I'm seeing another pale Mina in the side chat here. Hi there, Gwyneth. How you doing there, dear?
there's that Maine accent I love. I say this. I say I love her native accent, and I'm trying to cover mine up. So that's the level I work on.
Everybody loves everyone else's accents, and their own they cannot stand.
I
It's-
like mine, but
Do you even have an accent? I mean, maybe you're
Yeah.
just like doing a stage presence kind of thing right now, but
people from Kansas City have an accent. Yeah. And we also have regional like terminology. I know that we're off politics now, but like I took one of those tests a while back that's like, do you say pop or do you say soda? Do you say crawdad or crawfish? And like all those. And it was like exactly where I'm from. And it's funny too, because before I started testosterone, my voice was ridiculously high pitched. And so I actually moved away from saying, like, I would not say saying. I started saying sayin' or like I'm going, because I wanted to take that E out of my phraseology. So I actually sound more Southern because I tried to get away from like having such a squeakiness to my voice. But yeah, it seems non-regional, but I definitely do have an accent for sure.
it happens.
So-
I mean, I get it depending on what part of the country I'm in. I get different things. Like if I'm in the Southwest, people will be like, "You must be from New York." But if I'm in Atlanta, they'll guess Wisconsin. And because I say howdy up here in New York, they'll say, "Are you from Texas?" I'm like, "Boy, howdy! I tell you what." It's like, why?
Other people say howdy besides Texas.
I know. It's
Well, so I was born and raised in Missouri, so I come from like hillbilly stock, and that's why I don't like my native accent, because my native accent is associated with being uneducated, and I don't like that. People just assume I'm dumb, so I mask it. It's
You're already struggling enough being a blonde.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's like, come on now, give me some space. I don't. Ellie Mae is gonna be Well, Pragmatic Crystal gets it. She's Cajun, and people think that that Cajun people sound like they're unintelligent. I will say Cajun is the slowest French accent. I think. I think that's why the Southern. I think that's why people think Southern people are not intelligent, because we speak slower, right?
That's true.
Um,
It's a pretty big difference between somebody like from Louisiana versus somebody from New York. And then if you're from the middle, you feel like people in Louisiana speak slow, and then you go to New York and you're like, can y'all slow down? Like,
people in
everybody's Ben
California
Shapiro.
talk fast too. You know.
people from the big
We've
cities,
got
they got places to be.
That's exactly it. There's nobody has time. I mean, I'm not even in the city. I'm like as far from New York City as you can get without falling into the damn lake. And there's no time for anything. I got home from work, I took a quick shower, bam, we're on the air,
There you go. So
Such is life.
another question for you, Lux, and
Mhm.
and that is your preferred pronouns are it's. You want to talk about that is that sort of a reclamation project? Because I know when I was transitioning back in the Stone Age, I was insulted by that. I mean, literally, it was said in a mean way towards me. What is it?
Mhm.
And
Same.
so it's taken me a bit of getting used to, but I'm pretty used to. that at this point? Because why don't you go ahead and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess it's not so much of a reclamation. I mean, it happens to be also that, like, that's not like one of my primary reasons. Um, I'm also the kind of person who will refer to myself with like the T slur and the F slur, uh, just because I kind of have taken the position overall that, like, you want to take power out of the thing that is insulting you. You know, like, as a fan of A Song of Ice and Fire, like, um, you know, one of the characters says, like, the thing that they try to insult you with, use it as your armor. That way they can't hurt you with it. So,
Hell yeah.
yeah, so I kind of, at least I rationalize it by taking that position. But it really, for me, is just about, like, what is comfortable and, like, what is an accurate reflection of what I feel that my gender is. Because I definitely, like, grew up being called she, her. And then as I came into my trans identity, I wanted to try to use some neo pronouns. Like I tried the Spivak pronouns, am, air, for a little while. That didn't last super long. And then at the time, they, them was kind of becoming more normalized. So I was like, okay, this is the way that I can reliably get people to use pronouns that are more correct, even though I kind of always didn't exactly vibe with they, them pronouns. And then as time has gone on, and like also I used to identify as genderqueer. Like I used to claim a gender identity and I don't anymore. I now consider myself agender and I will just broadly say I'm non-binary or even just I'm trans in most situations because it's like my specific gender label is not relevant to most conversations. But uh so it was sort of that coming into realizing that like not only was I not able to quantify what my exact gender identity was, but that I just don't have one. And then as an idea started to coalesce around they, them pronouns, that, like, I think that people, and it's not like it's mainstream, but people who are even tangentially aware of the queer community and non binary people, they have this idea in their head of what a they is. And it tends to be like a skinny, white, transmasculine person with short hair who wears the button down shirts with the extremely loud patterns and has pet rats and stuff. Like, it just seemed to me like there was starting to be like a really cohesive idea of what a they, them was, and that was not me and not what I wanted to be reflected with. And so it's is just like when I think of a person who uses it's like I think of someone whose gender expression is like goth or like alternative. And I have always kind of I'm lazy now, but I kind of when I have the energy, I dress that way. So it's like I don't really identify with a gender. As an autistic person, I also don't always necessarily even identify with being a normal human being because I have
Fair.
been othered, you know? That's a pretty common experience for the autistics. So, yeah, it just feels like the most accurate representation. And then now as I'm exploring the possibility of changing my name to Moss, it just feels like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. This was all coalescing. This is all coming together." What other pronoun do you use for a Moss person other than it's? Like, it's
I
just
know
all falling into place.
when you started tossing around the idea of going with Moss, I was like, "Oh my goodness, you're such a non-binary person."
I know. Just
I
so
like it.
violently
I like it.
non-binary.
Aggressively so.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I shed
we
the
had
humanity.
we had a meme that popped up. You should have done that for a meme of the week, where it was like non-binary people picking their name, and it said, and then it had the person with like holding a pen or something,
Mhm.
and then our friend Ring was like, "I'm personally offended by this because their name's Ring," but now we have
Yeah.
Moss here, and it's here to stay.
How much more gender neutral can you get than naming yourself after a concept or a noun? If you all were at the call-in show last week, there was a person named Seven in Roman numerals, so it was like VII, and
Yes.
I was like, "Damn, girl, that is a strong name. That's assertive."
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I
We
she
love
and
it.
it was
love to see
pronounced
it.
Seven.
Yeah, Seven.
Not, I'm sure they should get V a lot, but
Yeah, I did ask. I was like, "Okay, which one is it? And then I noticed that the call screener actually indicated it was 7, so I shouldn't have asked. But sometimes I just read like the first couple words of the, and then I'm like, you just tell me what you want to talk about.
Yeah,
Good to
for
know.
sure.
I'll spend less time call screening. I'll spend less time typing for you. You know.
That
Yeah.
call
Good to know.
screener was right there.
I know, Stephanie. I'm
No,
sorry.
No, I wasn't screening. I wasn't screening that day.
Oh,
Oh.
you weren't screening.
That was.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that was Jess. I think Jess was on
Yeah,
that day.
it's so much to pay attention to. Like, I'm sure you all know, like, especially if you're producing at the same time as you're streaming, like, in some ways I
Hi.
thrive as an ADHD person, but like sometimes it's just too much.
Yeah. I mean, I like to try to pay attention to the side chat as well, and and pop in. Hey, I need calls. Call me because I'm lonesome. You know, I'm sitting here by the phone, waiting for the phone to ring. Where are the spicy
That's a
calls?
song,
How
isn't
come
it?
we got this? How come we got that? Yeah.
I do think it is.
Payphone trying to come. Speaking of side chat, real quick, Lux is still raising funds for the move, cover unexpected expenses, and so on and so forth. So in the side chat right now is a link to Lux's GoFundMe. If you can help, consider doing so, because for fuck's sake, we all need help. Like, every single trans person you know is cripplingly short on funds.
And places to
getting out of
live.
Kansas is seriously important, because whatever happens at the federal level, Kansas is getting increasingly more toxic, and that's no place for anybody to be.
And I
No.
personally do think it's safer in a blue state than it is trying to move even to Canada. Well, you know, Canada's doing its own slightly delayed version of ramping up to conservatism. So,
If you
yeah,
go straight north from Kansas, you're in Alberta, which
yeah,
Which is that's not much better.
that's just like Canada's Texas. So,
yeah.
Go to Saskatoon, folks.
well, I say this as a person moving from a blue state to a red state, so, but temporarily, of course. But yeah, I have to talk to Arden about that, because I know she moved from a blue state to a red state.
It's true.
I'm like, I don't even want to visit Texas. I can't imagine
Yeah.
moving there, but
I love the desert is my thing, though. In the part of Texas I'm going to, it's the desert, so that's kind of
cool.
nice. That's where all my bugs are. If you don't know, I'm a bug person. I got all the bugs behind me.
No,
My regular
we
channel's called
couldn't
Hive
tell.
Sci.
Oh, you're Hive Sci. Okay, cool. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
You wearing
I'm
bugs
Hive
now,
Sci.
Bree?
Bumblebee.
Yeah,
Yep,
I
that's
noticed
me.
you've got trans colors on your dress, but are there bugs on there?
On here? No, it's
Yeah.
palms. It's palms.
Trees.
Yep.
Look at the trees.
Now there's crabs that live up in those trees, coconut crabs.
Hell yeah.
So,
Coconut Express.
yes, we're on the
Nice.
coconut
Throw that
train,
out
right?
there.
I think we're all on the coconut train.
Reluctantly.
Yeah.
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 It actually, I realize that you've gotten a lot of shit for it, but I have tremendous respect for that video you put out about how Kamala is actually a right winger, and her opponent is just completely off the fucking deep end. Because I mean, I am excited now, as opposed to, when we had two zombies going up against each other. We might get
Agreed.
some kind of reasonable government functioning, perhaps, but it is a conservative government. And I think that was the point the entire time. Is the Republicans have been going further and further into the alt-right, into la la land, into craziness, and because the Democrats and Republicans are linked together, when the Republicans ran right off the cliff, they pulled Democrats right to the edge. And so there is no center. Everything is to the right, and it drives me bonkers.
Well, we haven't had a left-leaning president since FDR, really. I mean, let's be honest. Everybody's either been center or center right. And
It's
even
troubling.
Yeah, people get so mad. And it's like, I get it. I'm excited for Kamala in a way that I wasn't excited about Biden. But at the same time, I was listening to this debate, and there's simple stuff like, okay, so people are saying she was deliberately trying to cater to centrists. And I'm like, okay, can you define what centrism is? Because what she was doing was catering to a bunch of conservative talking points. Because, like, okay, she did say climate change is like an existential imperative thing we need to address. And like, that's part of the reason why I'm moving, because I cannot control my body temperature and I want to be able to grow food, because we're going to have like food and water shortages within the next 20 to 30 years globally. Like, that's not a joke. That's the direction we're trending toward. So knowing that, when she says, okay, yes, this is an imperative issue, we need to do something to address it, but she doesn't follow that up by saying, and that's why I have a policy plan to create jobs by investing in the renewable sector. Like, that would have been enough for me to be satisfied that she was. I would say that that's a centrist position, considering that she did also say,
Nope, fracking. You get fracking instead.
she wants to frack
Yeah.
more and she wants to increase domestic oil production, which like that is, if that's the only policy position you bring up, I'm going to say you're a conservative. Like, those are right-wing positions. And like, you can't say, oh, the environment is so important, and then say, yeah. And also she says, like, I want to fight for the little guy. But it's like, fracking destroys local water sources. So what little guy are you fighting for, if not like kids at school drinking
Literally
water?
releases radioactive
See-
materials into our drinking water that cause
Yeah.
cancer. It's not. This isn't a joke, right?
Yeah, I think the thing is that if you thinking for the long term and thinking strategically, I really kind of wonder. I think that the Republican Party is on the verge of fracturing.
I hope so.
And the thing that scares me the most is, you get conservatives like the folks on the Bulwark, like Bill Kristol, and I forget who the main host is over there, and the folks who are doing the Lincoln Project, and these are basically never Trumper Republicans who are fundamentally right wing. I mean, you look at Liz Cheney. I am voting for Kamala Harris because I don't want to see democracy evaporate in the United States. That's cool. My thinking is what the Dems need to do is throw them an anchor. Like, we don't need to build our tent to include Liz Cheney. She'll never be there for us. And I think if you look at the track record of the Biden administration when it comes to the environment, it's better than it could have been. But the thing is, I think Dems need to stop being timid and really stand for uh, uh, for the cause of progress and the cause of preservation, and make that mix of conservatism and conservation a major part of things. I mean, the last left wing president, FDR, I don't think you have to go that far back. LBJ was an idiot on foreign policy, but Medicare, the Great Society, anti-poverty programs. And it wasn't a war on poverty for Johnson. It was a lift people up sort of thing. So he gets a little bit more of that, and I do see that in Harris. I see the potential there in Harris, but it's all about politics, and it's all about give me a House, give me a Senate, then we'll talk. And when the Republicans start screaming that the Democrats are doing something with that, that's when you throw them an anchor.
And I do want to be fair to her. I did watch an interview with her, I think at I don't know, ABC or something, and she is trying to, like, she wants to stimulate the economy. She wants to expand the child tax credit. She wants to you know, increase funding to like the first time home buyers program. And I'm like, cool, yeah, that would potentially benefit me in a few years when I'm trying to buy a house for the first time. That would be great. So I do want to acknowledge, like, she obviously does have some positions that are, appealing to the progressive ideals of, equal opportunity, uh, all that kind of nonsense. But I think the part of the thing that frustrates me so much is that people say, oh, well, she's playing politics. That's why she's appealing to all these conservative talking points. And it's like, she's not going to cater to any of the progressive talking points because it's assumed that left-leaning people are just going to vote for her, or we have to vote for her. And then if she loses, just like what happened with Hillary Clinton back in the day, they blamed left-leaning people for not showing up.
Right.
But she won the
And
popular vote. Like, Hillary didn't lose because leftists didn't turn out. She lost because our system is rigged with the Electoral College.
and that's why I think that there has to be the thing that's great about the Harris Walz ticket is the that yes we can thing, and it seems to me more sincere than Barack Obama. Yes, we can, but the no drama part was a wasted opportunity, a missed opportunity, I think. Uh, and I don't know. Maybe we should try being assertive as people who approach politics from the left for a change, because we haven't been since the 70s, 60s, and 70s. We just
Yeah.
haven't been. We took our
The-
foot off the gas because we figured, oh, Roe v. Wade, great. That we've got reproductive health care enshrined as a human right in our Constitution, and we didn't have to wait 50 years before that was ripped out of our hands again. We took our foot off the gas. In on that score, we took our foot off the gas in terms of voting rights, in terms of equality. We let ourselves get steamrolled by people who talk about, oh well, critical race theory. What's that? Well, you know what? We do have a history of systematically excluding people on the basis of their skin color, and maybe we ought to fucking examine that. And maybe we ought to be teaching that. What's wrong with teaching history the way it was? Not some sort of candy apple uh, 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 tableau of George Washington chopping down cherry trees. Maybe we ought to look into our own past and acknowledge that we fucked up.
In the U.S., at least, having the last 40 years of football coaches teaching civics, I think, has led us down a bad path.
Not
at
a
least
great
in the
start.
Midwest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amber.
I love We Are Not Going Back. That resonates with me because, as y'all know, I'm fairly new in my transition, and I am not going the fuck back. And so I feel that. But, like, taking a stand against the regressives who are trying to claw back and be all reactionary and take away everybody's rights, stopping them, that's great. That's a fantastic first step. But that's not progress. That's only holding the ground we have.
Mm-hmm.
We need aggressive, assertive, fucking progress. And that's what I'd like to see out of Harris and Walz. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying even if they only hold the ground that we have, they're still getting my vote because the alternative is terrifying. But I want to see some fucking progress out of our progressives.
Yeah. Live up to your name, people. Well, to call them progressives, I mean, to say that we even have a progressive party is but
Look,
yeah.
you know, I can't afford to go back. I already blew all my surgery money.
Right?
You know,
Yeah,
there's
like
no
we were
fucking
talking
way.
about
I'm like,
to
wait
do
a minute.
is go to jail.
Phalloplasty is not in my future, believe me. And I say, even if I wanted it, You know, give me a
I'm gonna go to
break.
California and go to jail
What is
so I
this?
can get my free transgender surgeries.
Yeah, I'll just
That
go
is
to
the
school.
way
I'll
I
just go
roll.
back to school. You know.
Oh well, this is usually the time of the day when Ember has to bounce out, and I do want to give her kind of the stage for just a moment to tell us what she's got coming up on good news for us today.
That's right. Past Ember will be doing the good news segment as per usual. That's our one totally recorded segment of the show because I turn into a pumpkin. I get up early for work. Whatever. It's not important. But today we have so much good news. The segment actually goes a little bit long. I had to cut stories. I had to move stuff to next week's show. There is so much good news, and that's good news in and of itself. And there's progress against some of these stupid zip code based bans that we were talking about earlier. There's the courts are getting involved in more places. More people are getting their rights preserved or their rights returned. There's progress all around the world. And our big story tonight actually has to do with that upcoming Supreme Court ruling in a roundabout sort of way. There's a huge story that nobody has talked about, and it's coming up in just a little while.
All right. Oh, I don't know.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Thank you so much, Ember, for being here tonight. I just have a short segment myself. Probably gonna jump right into that after we close out the roundtable here. And then after that, we'll have some good news up on the screen for you with hers truly, Ember Belrad.
Hers truly. My new pronouns.
Hers truly.
Go.
Well, it's been a pronoun conversation tonight. I'm kind of glad we had it though, because a lot of people take the pronoun argument to extremes just to make a ridiculous argument about how our Western culture is falling apart when most societies, and I shouldn't say most, a lot of societies though had complex systems of gender and sex and everything before Abrahamic faiths took over every facet of life during the Middle Ages and gave us our now biblical gender roles that people seem to have the inclination are biological, and just sorry, they're really not. Just because the
not
Bible
even
says so.
biblical.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like, so I did a video on this on my own channel. In the Jewish faith, which Jesus Christ believed in, there are 8 fucking genders, and they're in the laws. They cover inheritance, they cover ceremonial rituals, what temple days people have to go. There's 8 genders in the religion that
8.
Jesus preached. For fuck's sake.
All right. Well,
I get a little worked up.
I got one small funny story. I was screening calls for I believe it was I think it might have been Skeptalk or something like that. Anyway, the usual thing is name. What pronouns do you like to go by? Are you a theist or an atheist? This one got a little bit weird. Name. What pronouns do you like to go by? Guy says, I don't believe in pronouns. Are you a theist or an atheist? Oh, I believe in God. Okay.
Pronouns, but believe in God.
God's not real. You are. You know, I don't know. I'm just saying. It took everything I had to just laugh out loud at the guy. Just stupid. Anyway.
Gotta stay professional.
All right.
We do our best.
Well, I will be back in just a moment with just to go cover some stuff real quick, and then we'll have some good news for you. So yeah,
Stick
thank
around
you again for joining us, Ember.
Of course,
Thanks, Ember.
and thanks, Lux. I don't know if you're sticking around for other segments or whatnot, but
Oh,
I do
you
have
will.
to go off because work starts early. But I really appreciate you coming. As you know, I absolutely just adore your streams. Your chat has such a fantastic chill vibe, and not to fangirl like crazy. I trust me. I am a normal human. I really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't know that it was an option for me to leave after the first segment, and I might, because I too am an old person who has to go to bed early. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be so tired by 10 o'clock.
I feel
No, you don't
that.
have to stick around for the full
It's
thing.
up
But-
to you. You don't have to be here for the entire thing, but like to, it's fine.
I appreciate
Anyway.
it all anyway.
I'm gonna hit the little button here, and we'll be back with
Buttons.
Bree.
To be on it, I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be at like 6:30, right? I've been unmuted.
Oh, we're back on screen.
How did that happen?
Production.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the transition ran out. Okay, we'll do this
Live
again.
broadcasting, folks.
Just leave me in here alone. I got this from here.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We'll hide Lux. We'll hide Carly. We'll hide Amber.
You brought me back. I'm
Wait a minute. I know. Oh, wait a minute. I brought Lux back. This is fun. I gotta hide
You
myself.
put your anchors in, you take your anchors out, you put your anchors in, and you take them all about.
Oh, goodness. I'm going to leave there so that I can't hear all that. Hello. Thank you for joining us and sticking around on Transpositions Weekly. I'm Bree McCune, and I just got, always just want a few minutes of your time. I don't take a long time on this, but I do want to bring things to people's attention that pop into my attention. And one of the things that's really been bugging me was this Brigitte Macron situation. Much like Hamani Khalif, the Olympian, Miss Macron, the First Lady of France, is being accused of being transgender. Obviously, I got mixed feelings about the whole being accused of being transgender, but it's slander to try to introduce anybody's gender based on conspiracy. And these two women in France, they went a little too far and started this bizarre conspiracy. And I'm just gonna let this lady here, because Candace Owens, our America's very own Candace Owens, formerly with the Daily Wire, like now she maybe it was Blaze. Regardless, she got into the shake of things as well.
A conspiracy theory that has been going around here in France at least since 2021, but the debate just resurfaced this month and has been given new life in the United States after conservative political commentator Candace Owens promoted this conspiracy theory on one of her shows.
This is from about 5 months ago, just to keep everybody
in
up
the
to
Daily
speed.
Wire on March 8th, 11th. The show titled, Is France's First Lady a Man? An episode that, by the way, seems to have been taken down. In this episode, Owens' main claim is that Brigitte...
Well, Owens isn't even on the Daily Wire anymore. She got canned from there for... I guess I don't know how to say it, but like anti-Semitism. I mean,
Macron and her brother Jean-Michel Trognon are actually the same person. She claims that Jean-Michel lived as a man for 30 years, fathered 5 children, and then transitioned at the age of 30 to become Brigitte. As proof, in her show, she used various photos, and notably this one, that is the alleged before and after photo of Brigitte's alleged transition, showing the similarities between Brigitte Macron and her brother. For instance, they point out the nose, the chin, the hairline.
Literally transvestigating, which is something we're familiar with here on Transpositions, even when I do try to keep things upbeat. the transvestigating is sometimes it's hilarious, but it's awful sad to see how many people dive headfirst into this nonsense.
When in reality, what we see is a picture of Brigitte Macron and her brother. Naturally, they look alike. As absurd as this may seem, Candace
Seems like a genetics thing, maybe. People who have the same parents might look alike. Weird.
Owens went to Twitter following this show and said that she would stake her entire professional reputation on the fact that Brigitte Macron is in fact a man. And this tweet has been seen over 7.4 million times on the platform. Ironically enough, it seems that the Daily Wire did choose to part ways with Owens last week, not over crazy conspiracy theories though, but over
Oh, actually, it is over crazy conspiracy theory. Unless you're going to say the Jewish question is not a crazy conspiracy theory.
Israel views. I guess that's where they draw the line.
Her entire professional reputation. It's an interesting use of words, isn't it? Which don't really add up in the case of Candace Owens, or utter nonsense.
Anyway, so as I was saying, this was about 5 months ago, but here recently, this case went to court. So check this out. Oh, is that the same one? Yeah, hold on. Here we are. We're going to share this one. Yep. Here we go.
By conspiracy theorists and the far right. The YouTube video at the centre of the case sparked a frenzy of online rumour mongering by conspiracy theorists and the far right. A court here in France has ordered 2 women to pay €8,000 in damages to First Lady Brigitte Macron after they made false claims that she was transgender. Macron filed a libel complaint against the 2 women who posted.
I'm just shocked that this woman is 71 years old. She looks like younger than me.
The footage alleging that she'd once been a man named Jean-Michel. The claim went viral just weeks before the 2022 presidential election. Well, to discuss the impact such a case might have on the transgender community, we're joined now by Flora Bolter, co-director of the LGBTI+ Observatory at the Fondation Jean Jaurès. Thank you so much for being with us on the programme this evening. Brigitte Macron, she didn't attend this trial. She wasn't present for the ruling. Many people might be wondering this evening why she went to such bother to suppress claims that were so obviously false. Why did the presidency take the video so seriously, and what do you make of this case?
And say there's 2 ways to address something like this, right? Now, when Lady Gaga was accused of being secretly trans, she's like, whatever. I actually had that story pulled up too, because she just did an interview recently where she talked about those accusations, and then and explain why she didn't feel like she needed to address them. But when people are doing it to affect politics, to spread these rumors because they're trying to make sure that somebody's spouse doesn't get elected based on nothing more than hearsay.
Well, it's a very complex case because the video in question was an extremely long video with very harebrained theories about how Brigitte Macron was the same person as her brother. And this, I think the main problem with this video was that it made big news, and it was very viral at one point, and that was during the campaign. So there was, it did create some impact and some blowback on the president's campaign and on Brigitte Macron's life at that time. She received quite a lot of abuse at that time. So I think the idea was to respond to this and not let it go, not let it slide, basically.
Somebody shows that says money can't buy you happiness. I'm going to point out this woman, though. Look at that. She freaking 71 years old and doesn't have a worry line on her face. Good grief, this is a beautiful woman. And it just goes to show that anybody can be transvestigated. We've seen Margot Robbie get transvestigated. We've seen our own First Lady get transvestigated for years based on nonsense from Joan Rivers. We've seen just about anybody you can think of. We've seen J.K. Rowling, the turf queen herself. We've seen Andrew Tate.
But the question of how exactly to name and to qualify the what was said has been extremely complicated.
Yeah, and do you believe that she could have responded differently, perhaps? Were you surprised that this video was subject to legal action at the highest levels of the French state?
Well, I'm not surprised in the sense that there is a strong will on the part of the French government and on the part of French authorities in recent years to counter and to attack, to respond blow by blow to conspiracy theories and to attack all.
And I'd like to see this sort of reaction take hold really everywhere. You start spreading conspiracy theories that put people in danger without any kind of foundation at all, you should face consequences.
These sorts of videos, as opposed to just turning a blind eye to it, which would probably be the most common approach. So that was also a way to show that the president and Brigitte Macron took this issue seriously and were intent on using the possibilities of the law, possibilities that had been increased in recent years in 2020 on questions of conspiracy theories and online harassment. But it is I think that it was not necessarily very well thought out in terms of legal ramifications and qualifications. The initial case was brought on questions of privacy laws, which was a bit bizarre, and the prosecution changed that to a libel case. Which also raises another question, which is how does one consider allegations that a person is transgender? So
I think it's self-declared that somebody, if you are transgender and you say I'm transgender, that should be recognized. If you aren't transgender and somebody says you are transgender, that should be libel. If you are transgender and somebody says you're not transgender, that should be libel. You tell people whether or not you're trans, and they shouldn't make assumptions otherwise. Easy peasy, keeps everybody out of trouble.
It's in that sense, if they had wanted to do something in favor of trans rights, then probably a case could have been brought with trans organizations and bringing attention to transphobia and to the impact of transphobia on people's lives. The choice which was made was very conservative, and the attack, the
better than what we would have got on this side of the Atlantic, though.
The problem with the whole situation was connected not to, as you know, in French libel law, the issue was not whether being transgender is an attack on her honor, but more on questions of did it expose her to a loss of reputation among some voters. And I think that's what the court.
I think undue harassment based on unfounded rumors and conspiracy is plenty.
Court had in mind when they said that there had indeed been a defamation, but this defamation is absolutely correlated to the fact that there is transphobia and is not separable from the fact that being called transgender also exposes one to transphobia.
And not an attack on her honour, as you say, Flora, but what kind of a message do cases like this send to people who are actually transgender?
Well, it's a bit bizarre because it could be interpreted, it could be taken as a case to further the right to privacy and to say that people should not, there are many people online who have a very intense life trying to transvesticate, as they say, many different people. So this could be used to protect them against these people who have huge campaigns attacking pretty much everyone and accusing them of being transgender, which in their view is a negative thing. So it could certainly be used against outing or against unwanted and all.
That's the thing. That's the problem here, is the outing. You know, you don't get to put somebody else's personal shit on blast like that with information that they haven't made public themselves. That's not your place to do as a member of the media, Candace Owens.
Or unwarranted speculations about their gender identity. But it could also be said, some people might also view it as saying that being transgender is in and of itself considered a bad thing, or could be assimilated to a form of libel in and of itself, which of course would not be a very positive move and would not necessarily be very favorable to trans people in general.
It is a complicated case, as you say, Flora. We will have to leave it there for now, but thank you so much for your time on the program with us. That's Flora Boulter, co-director.
Yeah, Flora, thank you so much. So that's where we are on the Brigitte Macron situation. The people who started this this chain letter of nonsense about her are being held responsible, and they are being held accountable. What that means for outing people in general, we'll see what the future holds. But for the Transpositions, I've been Bree McCune.
Good news, everyone! Tonight, trans wins around the world. The New York Times gets called out. A new alliance forged in the quest for freedom forms, and more. Good news starts right now. First up, Australia keeps dragging the rest of the world into the future, this time in New South Wales. Councillor Paige Johnson was just elected Newcastle's first openly transgender representative. The Labour candidate was voted into the city's second ward this past Saturday. Ms. Johnson's victory is another progressive step that continues the council's pioneering in the political field, starting with the election of Australia's first female Lord Mayor, Joy Cummings, in 1974. A longtime advocate for LGBTQIA+ rights, Ms. Johnson said while her focus was on local government, she understood what her victory meant for the local trans and gender diverse community. Quote, "Visibility matters, and I know how difficult it can be to see your future self somewhere where there isn't much representation of people like you," she explained. "But I also know being able to be yourself and live your truth every day makes a world of difference." You are preaching to the choir, ma'am. She is currently vice president of the advocacy organization Hunter Gender Alliance. The councillor has been a Newcastle Labour Party member for more than a decade as well. She boasts a background as a civil engineer, working on the Committee of Management of the Local Government Engineers Association, and is a Professionals Australia delegate to Newcastle's Trades Hall Council. She said, quote, "It is an honor to be elected to public office as a counselor in this progressive city. I'm determined to keep fighting for Newcastle to be a livable and inclusive place where everyone in our community can thrive. From helping on polling booths to sharing kind words, I've been overwhelmed by the goodwill I've received and am hugely appreciative of everyone's support. This victory is all your victory." Next, following up on the New Hampshire sports ban from a couple of weeks ago, as expected, the courts put the gavel down and banished the blatant bigotry. From out in New Jersey, a federal court has blocked the enforcement of New Hampshire's HB 1205, a law that prohibits transgender girls from participating in school sports, allowing 2 high school students, Parker Terrell and Iris Turmel, to continue playing sports while their case challenging the law proceeds. The ruling, issued September 10th, determined that HB 1205 discriminates against transgender students in violation of Title IX and the U.S. Constitution. In his decision, the judge stated that the law, quote, "on its face discriminates against transgender girls," adding that the stigma and humiliation imposed on transgender students by such laws are, quote, "substantial and irreparable." Parker Terrell, a sophomore, had previously been granted permission through an emergency court order to join her high school soccer team. This broader ruling extends the same rights to freshman Iris Turmel, allowing her to try out for the tennis and track teams at her new school. Terrell said, quote, "I just want to play the game I love with my friends." The families, represented by GLBTQ legal advocates and defenders, the ACLU of New Hampshire, and the law firm Goodwin, filed the lawsuit in August challenging HB 1205. The lawsuit argues that the law denies transgender students equal educational opportunities and violates their constitutional rights. This ruling follows similar decisions in other federal courts, which have also blocked bans on transgender students in school sports, finding them to be discriminatory, because they obviously are. The case, Terrell and Turmel versus Edelblut, will continue to move forward as the court's injunction remains in place. Similarly, an Arizona ban that was blocked last year in federal court has been double blocked on appeal. From Jurist. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals last Monday affirmed a lower court's decision to allow 2 transgender girls to play sports in an all-girls team, despite Arizona legislation attempting to bar their participation. The plaintiffs, 2 transgender minors using the pseudonyms Kate and Megan Doe, challenged Arizona's Senate Bill 1165, the so-called Save Women's Sports Act, which bans transgender girls and women from taking part in women's sports and other teams that match their gender identity. The bill applies to all educational levels ranging from elementary school through university. In April 2023, Kate and Megan Doe sued the defendants, the Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction, and their respective schools, seeking injunctive relief. The complaints relied on Section 1681A of Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, which prohibits discrimination where a school receives federal financial assistance, and the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection and Rights of Citizens, where, quote, "every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination, period." In July of 2023, the U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona ruled that the act should not prevent the plaintiffs from playing sports, finding that there was no significant athletic advantage before puberty and in girls who received puberty blockers. Which is true, but there's more. The court also granted a preliminary injunction allowing the applicants to continue playing on their sports teams. The 3-panel judge of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals held that that court's decision was correct, and additionally, that the Save Women's Sports Act discriminates against transgender people, which violates the Equal Protection Clause. The case is still set to go to trial, but for the time being, the law cannot be enforced. In 2022, Arizona's Governor Doug Ducey signed Senate Bill 1165, which defined gender in interscholastic sports. The bill stated that female, women, or girls may not be open to students of the male sex, and that the legislature finds biological sex to be, quote, either male or female, and biological differences between males and females are determined genetically during embryonic development. Which raises some interesting questions about people like yours truly. On a related note, 86% of transgender and non-binary youth find that anti-trans bills negatively impact their mental health. The American Civil Liberties Union is currently tracking 530 anti-LGBTQ bills in 2024, 13 of which aim to ban transgender students from playing on sports teams. And this is why stories like this matter, because this bill, passed in 2022, is only now working its way through the courts and being prohibited for explicitly violating several federal laws. It's true that illegal laws can be struck down by the courts, but it takes years, and during that time, hundreds more bills like it can be proposed, many of which get passed. And then those are in force for years while they work their way through the courts. So it's important to report on cases like this that show those bills, even if enacted, will inevitably be struck down because they're illegal. So that maybe, just maybe, the people in charge in these legislatures across the United States stop trying to hurt us. Maybe, please. Maybe. Good news, everyone! Additionally, that the safety on a bills like it can be proposed, many of which get passed, and then those are in force for years while they work their way through the courts. So it's important to report on cases like this that show those bills, even if enacted, will inevitably be struck down because they're illegal. So that maybe, just maybe, the people in charge in these legislatures across the United States stop trying to hurt us. Maybe, please. Maybe. Gavels aren't the only things coming down on discriminatory practices. This week, the New York Times was called out for their increasingly anti-trans positions at the National Convention for LGBT Journalists from Media Matters. The Association of LGBTQ+ Journalists National Convention this year convened an array of industry leaders to discuss the current state of the news media in one of the toughest years for the industry since the Great Recession. The topics of discussion included declining trust in the media and a subsequent question about mainstream media lending credence to right-wing detractors on transgender issues put an editor representing the New York Times on the defensive. Tracy Gilchrist, former editor-in-chief of The Advocate, said, quote, "We have the ability at The Advocate to not have to both sides certain stories, like whether or not gender-affirming care or trans women in sports are scientifically sound. And there are some mainstream outlets that try to both sides that. I would love to hear from those folks how they are combating that in their newsrooms, because that is a misinformation." New York Times assistant managing editor Sam Sifton jumped at the question, saying, quote, "As a mainstream news organization that covers those issues and many more, I don't think we're engaging in both sidesism. I think what we're doing is trying to embody an ideal of independent journalism that posits that our job, our mission in seeking the truth and helping people understand the world is going to prove to be a disappointment to those who find our article not to match their worldview, not to match what they believe. Well, he's half right. Sifton then compared the Times coverage of gender-affirming care to its recent coverage of the war in Gaza, for which the paper has also come under fire after quantitative analysis from The Intercept found a pro-Israel bias, as well as a leaked internal memo advising against the use of the correct terms genocide, ethnic cleansing, and occupied territory. Sifton said, quote, "I've got to say it's tough for those of us at the Times because it's unsettling a little bit. It's a lonely feeling sometimes, saying that the criticism of the paper's Gaza coverage has been anti-Palestinian. Because it has. And what it requires of us to do is not both sides-ism. What it requires of us to do is to go out and gather as many points of view and as many fact points as we can, and, as we say, try to help people understand." Which is a colloquialism, it seems, for tell people what to think. In February 2023, the New York Times reprimanded its own staff and contributors after several members signed a pair of open letters expressing grievances with the paper's transgender coverage, dismissing those calls coming from inside the House as protests organized by advocacy groups. Media Matters and GLAAD found that 66% of New York Times articles about anti-trans legislation from February 15th, 2023 to February 15th, 2024 failed to quote a trans or gender nonconforming person. And 18% quoted misinformation from anti-trans activists without fact-checking or context. This year alone, the Times has quoted James Cantor, a psychologist who has reportedly worked on behalf of Project 2025 with the known hate group, the Alliance Defending Freedom, who has repeatedly compared homosexuality to pedophilia, specifically to fearmonger against gender-affirming care, which is totally unrelated, and published a 4,500-word column on the subject, addled with misinformation and dubious sources. Internal messages of dissent over the column were also deleted from the New York Times internal communications. The New York Times continues to be skeptical of gender-affirming care despite the overwhelming support from, quote, every major medical institution and leading World Health Authority. And of course, while the opinions of individual reporters remains relatively unimportant, their ability to shape public opinion as the stakes continue to escalate as we approach hearings in the Supreme Court concerning Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care and the implications it will have nationwide for all trans people and many other people, makes this discourse critically important. So having one major leading news source, the New York Times, peddling openly misinformation is absolutely unforgivable. And the fact that they were censured by their fellow journalists at a journalism conference is very good news. Speaking of New York and peddlers of misinformation, folks here in my home state are getting riled up over a ballot proposal that would enshrine reproductive rights and non-discrimination protections into the state constitution. What's not to love? From WGRZ. Some Western New York high school athletes are worried about how policy changes may affect the way their sports are played, whether or not to allow trans women and trans men to compete in high school sports. Others say there is nothing to worry about. Proposition 1, a New York ballot initiative also known as the New York Equal Rights Amendment, is a proposition that would harden abortion rights in the state constitution and also give more protections against discrimination against women and LGBTQ+ people, among others. But some are fear-mongering that it would pave the way for trans athletes in women's sports, failing to make any coherent argument over why that should be a problem. Local high school athletes argue that trans athletes, specifically trans girls and women, have an unfair competitive advantage in sports, despite the fact that that has been a claim discredited at the international level by studies commissioned by the International Olympic Committee directly and published this year. People are still spreading that known falsehood. And also that it is necessary to protect children from making life-saving decisions because they may later regret it. Because there's no trans people who regret not being able to transition. That doesn't happen. That's not a thing that happens. Never mind. Never mind. Pay no attention to us. It's okay. Tiffany Ellis, a former athlete, said, quote, "Treating everybody with the same rules and being fair are two different things." Ronald Piaseczny, president of Niagara Pride and supporter of Proposition 1, said, quote, "It's trying to take laws that we already have and not grant any more new protections, but simply codify those protections that we already have in other laws into the Constitution." The proposal asks voters whether they support or oppose adding language to the Constitution that people cannot be denied their civil rights based on their, quote, "race, color, ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, creed, religion, or sex. Sex including sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, as well as pregnancy status, pregnancy outcomes, reproductive health care, and autonomy." A yes vote puts these simple, basic human right protections against discrimination into the New York State Constitution. A no vote leaves these protections out. As you can no doubt imagine, there's a surprising volume of static about this fairly simple and straightforward amendment, with lots of the Red Hat Brigade Russian agents saying that it will do one outrageous thing or another. So here it is, in its entirety, what is being proposed. It adds the words underlined, such as ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, or sex, which it does include sexual orientation and gender identity. It includes pregnancy. It includes reproductive health care. And it goes on to say nothing in this section shall invalidate or prevent the adoption of any law, regulation, program, or practice that is designed to prevent or dismantle discrimination on the basis of a characteristic listed in this section. Nor shall any characteristic listed in this section be interpreted to interfere with, limit, or deny the civil rights of any person based upon any other characteristic identified in this section. In common parlance, it is a little bit verbose, but as Ronald said, it's taking protections that already exist in law and putting them properly into the state constitution where, frankly, it's a bit embarrassing that they aren't already there. And now our top story. New York isn't the only place where groups have found common cause in defending liberty from right-wing reactionaries. The inaugural Gender Liberation March took place in Washington, D.C. this weekend, and it turns out that pretty much all women, nearly all LGBT people, and nearly all Black and Indigenous people of color all have a keen interest in protecting the legal concept of bodily autonomy. Who would have guessed? From 19th News, under pride flags, Black Lives Matter flags, and Palestinian flags, thousands of LGBTQ+ people and their loved ones danced and chanted through the inaugural Gender Liberation March in Washington, D.C. on Saturday to send one unified message: that fights for reproductive rights and trans rights are inextricably linked. Raquel Wills, a transgender writer and activist who co-organized the march, said, quote, "The overarching goal here is to make these connections, to get folks to start understanding that all of our rights are on the chopping block. She wants to remind Democrats that abortion is also a trans issue. Protesters marched in defiance of state legislation restricting their access to gender-affirming care, of the Supreme Court decision that overturned the constitutional right to an abortion, and of the extreme anti-LGBTQ+ agenda detailed in Project 2025. They traveled to Washington on buses from Atlanta, from Baltimore, from New York City, from Chattanooga, from Durham. The protesters wanted to show the powers that be that their power is limited and that trans joy and queer joy do not need permission to exist. On the streets surrounding the U.S. Capitol, thousands of protesters, outnumbering the rallies of a failed former U.S. president, echoed chants led by Queen Jean, activist and founder of Black Trans Liberation. We are America, too. Leslie Jennifer Porter and Francis George took a bus from New York City that was sponsored by the event organizers. They both listened as high-profile activists and celebrities shared their experiences about trying to access abortions, reproductive health care, and gender-affirming care. They both marched through Washington to protest the political forces seeking to ban such care, and they each brought their own signs with their own message. George, who is 25, came to Washington to convey her opposition to the anti-trans legislation that has flooded state houses in recent years. On a colorful sign, she has drawn bills banning gender-affirming care for minors, and Florida's Don't Say Gay bill burning in a fire speckled with gold glitter. She said, quote, "I'm feeling like my voice has a strong power. There's more power together. Our voices sound louder instead of being drowned out by the people with the money and the megaphones." Porter's sign, which she had worked on with friends, carried a simple message of love adorned with a few hearts, reading, "I love trans folks. They are lovely." Which is true. Based. Porter, 37, carried that sign past dozens of bicycle police guarding the grounds to the Capitol as she and other protesters marched to the Supreme Court and back to Columbus Circle. There were few counter-protesters along the march's route. As they reached the Supreme Court, 5 men stood and watched across the street, holding an Appeal to Heaven banner symbolic of the far-right and Christian nationalist movement, wore MAGA apparel, and held an anti-abortion sign. Just making sure they cover all their bases, because despite the amount of money in politics, the amount of news outlets owned by these powers that be, the actual number of people on the ground are infinitesimal in comparison. And we see it at London Pride when there were over 10,000 marchers and 19 TERFs. Or at any Pride event we saw this year where there were hundreds or thousands of celebrants depending on the size of the community the Pride event took place in. And there were 3 or 4 people shouting about going to hell and yada yada. Here we have a few thousand protesters in the nation's capital and 5 bigots showed up. So they had to represent all the different bigotries at once, because when you're that understaffed, you have to multitask. Those in the Gender Liberation March didn't bother to engage with the counter-protesters because possibly they didn't notice them or chose to ignore them. Like Porter, they carried their own declarations of love, a glittery sign reading, "Gender is splendor," a father's sign that read, "Walking for my son Nate, he is the best," and another that read, "A world without trans people has never existed." For the march organizers, threading resistance with joy and love was crucial, because to them, that joy is the antidote to the policies harming us. That's why a professional DJ was ready to hype up the crowd for a Vogue-filled dance party outside Heritage Foundation headquarters. The Conservative Foundation is, of course, the origin of Project 2025, a policy blueprint for a second Trump administration that would dramatically roll back all human rights in the United States, but especially LGBTQ plus rights, especially women's rights, and especially minority rights. Eliel Cruz, a veteran activist and march co-organizer, said, quote, "Some of the parents were crying, describing the scene as protesters reached the Heritage Foundation building, and some started dancing. Quote, when you're in states where you have to fight nonstop against these attacks and maybe even flee, you just never get a chance for joy." One of the families on Cruz's mind is 17-year-old Daniel Trujillo and his parents from Tucson, Arizona. For years, Daniel and his mom have driven back and forth to the state's capital to testify against anti-LGBTQ plus bills and to speak out against efforts to ban the gender-affirming care that Daniel relies on. On Saturday, Lizette Trujillo wasn't just at the Gender Liberation March to support her transgender son. She was there as someone who chose to have an abortion at 22 and who suffered a miscarriage at 40. At Columbus Circle, with the Capitol building in the distance behind her, Trujillo said that when she saw everyone dance outside of the Heritage Foundation, she felt herself start to sob. Quote, "The last 6 years have been exhausting. We've been targeted by Breitbart, doxxed, spent many nights worried about Daniel's safety, but all this worry has only fueled our advocacy." Another parent of a transgender child, Stephen Chakumba, took the stage in Washington by reading the names of young trans people who were killed or had died by the age of 25. The list was long and included instances of lethal or near-lethal violence perpetrated on trans youth by other children. He said, quote, "This hateful rhetoric is seeping into the psyches of children, turning them into weapons. It's not just a war on trans people. It's a war on all people. Children are being groomed by a society that teaches them to fear difference. Hate is a learned behavior." Multiple speakers at the Gender Liberation March urged for action and warned against apathy in the face of rising violence against trans people. Activist Aaron Lang said on Saturday outside the Supreme Court, quote, "Some of us won't make it to the land we are trying to create, but the babies are watching us. We don't have the luxury of treating very real threats like a difference of opinion. They really want us dead. They want us gone today. So please, to the people with resources and power, quit acting like you can't do anything." Cruz said that advocates had seen a glaring lack of inclusion of trans issues in campaign conversations leading up to and including the presidential election. She said, quote, "Mobilizations like these are definitely meant to push and remind and urge our elected officials that we're making these connections and we are paying attention, and we need them to as well." Organizers scheduled the march before President Joe Biden gave up his bid for a second term in the White House and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee. At the time, Democrats were predicting that former President Donald Trump could win the election and implement Project 2025 along with other extremist anti-LGBTQ plus policies. Since Harris has become the Democratic nominee, the tenor of the election has shifted, but Cruz and others say LGBTQ plus Americans face an existential crisis no matter who takes the White House next year. Organizers want Democratic leaders to speak explicitly against the vitriol targeting trans kids as well as adults. Activist Willis said, quote, "It's clear that speaking directly about the attacks, particularly on trans, on non-binary folks, feels like a liability to a lot of our Democratic leaders. There's really nothing but insinuation around being your full self in this country and having the freedom of that, but really little to no direct nods to the attacks on actual trans people are happening across the country. Advocates have fumed about the lack of meaningful engagement on LGBTQ+ issues from the media. At the September 10th debate between Harris and Trump, moderators didn't ask any questions about any GSM community issues. Sarah Kate Ellis, president of GLAAD, the nation's largest LGBT media advocacy group, said, quote, "The debate included only one mention of LGBTQ+ Americans, a smear against transgender people, that went unchallenged. Campaign reporters and debate moderators are urged to ask questions that reveal a candidate's records, views, and plans for LGBTQ Americans, so that our community is included as we are in everyday life, not simply as political talking points." GSM people and their allies increasingly represent one of the most powerful, if not forgotten, voting blocs in the nation. Advocates argue that LGBT people make up 8% of the population across all minority groups, according to census data. 2 years ago, the Human Rights Campaign, a national LGBTQ rights organization, published a report which found that queer voters would likely make up a fifth of the electorate by 2040. Even in 2024, our influence is expected to be considerable. GLAAD reported in February that 94% of LGBTQ+ people surveyed said they were likely to vote in this year's presidential election. And GSM voters aren't the only ones voting on GSM issues, advocates point out. HRC has increasingly identified equality voters, or people who are not GSM, but vote with equality in mind. Allies, you might say. The organizations reported that 75 million Americans are motivated to vote on LGBTQ+ rights. A few steps from a large-scale replica of the Liberty Bell that marks the center of Columbus Circle, actor Elliot Page and Stonewall veteran Miss Major Griffin Gracie took the stage at the march. The Trans Latina Coalition, the Black LGBTQIA+ Migrant Project, and We Testify, an organization that shares personal stories about abortion access, brought other speakers as well. Willis said, quote, "Everyone's bodily autonomy and self-determination is under attack. While this movement centers trans and non-binary people, women of all experiences, and those who may need abortion access or IVF access at some point in their lives, we're fighting for everyone's right to make decisions about their own bodies." The Gender Liberation Movement, the volunteer-run group that organized this march, intends to come back to Washington when the Supreme Court begins arguments for LW versus Skermetti, the case that will determine whether gender-affirming care bans for transgender youth are unconstitutional. Those arguments are expected to take place in December. When Willis took the stage on Saturday, she had a message for everyone to take home with them. Quote, "I want every generation to come to know that no matter how you live, how you love, what you look like, how you work, how you twerk, how you twirl, no matter what your dreams or fears or desires are, we do bear fruit." If you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe. Support our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/TheTransPositions and reap heaps of benefits. Our meme of the week was posted by yours truly. And if you want to enjoy the gender-flavored jelly of your choice, join us on Discord. Also, if you have good news concerning trans people you'd like to see reported on, you can tell us about that in the Discord as well. For the Transpositions, I've been Ember Belrad.
Hey, everybody, back again. I've got a little tiny thing, not too much to go over, but I'm going to do a little bit of bragging, going to smile a lot. 2 weeks ago, 2 weekends ago, uh, I participated in a regatta on a sailboat. We had a very good regatta and we captured our season championship. Last weekend, I ran a sailboat race, and I just want to show you a little bit of footage from that. It was a lot of fun. I was the principal race officer, so I set the table and made it possible for these fine folks to do a little sailing. So let's see if we can get some of that stuff going here. Here we go. There's no audio here, so it's a little bit boring. But I'll try to explain some of what's going on. Here we go. Have to something here. Load this thing, I guess. Got it running. There we go. I think I get to do it. Oh, wait a second. This isn't it. Oh, wait a second. This is all wrong. Let's just try this again here. Goodness me. Sorry about this. A few glitches this evening, obviously. Thank you for your patience. Amateur production.
I almost forgot to say something earlier when we were all on the panel together. I meant to say congratulations. It's National Talk Like a Pirate Day, and you're talking about your winning you're winning at sailing. So I don't know if I can talk like a pirate or not.
Well, I don't know.
Sound like an Irish lady if I do. Or like what do you do, like a Scottish accent? I don't know if I'm good at accents.
If I can get this thing going here. I'm sorry.
Makes
Thought I had it all queued up, but I did not.
This is not the first
I did not.
stream we've been to today, says John Fabiano. Well, thank you for your patience with us. We, like I mentioned it.
There we go.
We recently switched software, so so it's been kind of touch and go. But hopefully we get more go and less touch here as things move forward.
Yeah, here we go. We got it happening here.
All right, I'm gonna leave you to it. Now, thank you everybody for sticking around.
Just
Much
no,
love.
stick around because I may screw it up. Just don't
Oh.
don't go too crazy.
Yeah. We're doing OBS, which is
Yeah, I'm
Jefferson.
trying to do the OBS thing and it's not working out for me. It's just not working out for me real good.
Jefferson was trying EvuMix.
Yeah, I know. Well, no, it's like it's my OBS that's screwing up here.
But yeah, well, I'm just saying that's what they're talking about in the chat that Jefferson has some glitches earlier too. We're used to glitches over here. Transposition is 50%.
All right, I think I got it. I believe I got it.
50% glitches, but the glitches are sometimes fun, so stick around because we're all trying. Are you?
Here we go.
Let me see if you
I do got it. Just hold on a sec. I do believe by George, I believe I got it.
There was an ugly avatar.
Okay. Wheelboat racing action coming at you. These boats are Etchels. Etchels 22s. 2024 Fleet 27 Lobster Bowl Regatta. Out of studio mode. Reposition this somewhat. Make it a little bit smaller, maybe. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. And we will roll the tape. It's going downwind with the spinnaker up. I believe it was boat 01 that won the event with a unbelievable. They were just so good. Canadian team. My intrepid Windward Mark team. Oh, right there. There you have it. I don't have too much to say except that it was a real delight setting the table for 29 boats on the water with 3 support boats and running the committee boat and talking to all those folks and moving marks around so that the courses were upwind and downwind and fair and so 29 petrels had a really good time last weekend and makes this old trans woman so grateful that so many people asked me to put on a regatta for them and to give them quality sailboat racing and not misgender me once. Suppose I should expect that after 27 years, but I don't think I'd be here. I'll be honest, I don't think I'd be here doing the sport I love, either sailing or officiating, with anywhere near the joy I have now, because it's a joy now. A lot more of a joy than it was 27 years ago. Hang in there, kids. For the transpositions, I'm Stephanie Holmes.
Hello, Transposition Sports, our friends, our comrades, our people who love our show. I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb. Before we get Transposition Sports going tonight, just a couple of housekeeping notes coming in. Next weekend, Transposition Sports will be taking the week off because we're going to be building the new Shar Sports 1 Sports Control. That's right, the new Shar Sports 1 Sports Control. And I can tell you, it is going to be a mixture of fun, function in femme. That's right. I am going to make it frilly. I'm going to make sports frilly again. Anyway, tonight's Transposition Sports is extra special because of the spotlight interview for this week. It's somebody who I've grown to not only respect, but to deeply admire and be a big fan of. Bree, kick it.
You're standing in your blocks and you hear Paritalia, Valentina Petrello. How are you going to feel when you hear
Sempre a
that?
disposizione, dobbiamo interrogarci, anche il mondo dello sport deve interrogarci e sicuramente al primo posto nell'agenda del mondo dello sport ci deve essere la parola inclusione, perché una soluzione si deve trovare per tutte e per tutti, perché lo sport è bello così.
Italy's Valentina Petrillo made a piece of history at the recent Paralympics. No, she didn't win a medal and follow in the footsteps of her hero, Pietro Manea. But she's a hero nonetheless to transgender people around the world. Hello again, everybody. This is Transposition Sports. I'm Carly Chardonnay-Webb. Coming up later, an interview with Valentina Petrillo on what happened and what comes next. But first, the news of the week. And some good news out of the state of New Hampshire. The Kearsarge School District voted 6-1 last Thursday to defy state law and allow one of their students, a transgender girl who plays on the girls' soccer team at the school, to keep playing in defiance of the state's recent ban on transgender student athletes. The athlete in question is Maëlle Jacques. Now, Jacques is the goalkeeper on the girls' soccer team. She's also a state high jump champion from last year. She lobbied the school district on the heels of a federal temporary restraining order that was put forth after a lawsuit by high school soccer player Parker Terrell of Plymouth Regional High School and Iris Turmel, an incoming freshman at Pembroke Academy. They filed a lawsuit backed by the ACLU to challenge the law that was signed last year. Now, because of that challenge, both of those kids can continue playing for their respective teams or trying out for their teams. And Jacques used the same reasoning to lobby her school district to defy the state law, which they did. And Maëlle Jacques, as of last week, is still playing and still trying to keep goals out of the net for Kearsarge High. Now, a spokesperson for the Attorney General's office in New Hampshire, Michael Garrity, told New Hampshire Public Radio, quote, "The law is only currently enjoined for one plaintiff and otherwise remain in effect statewide. However, with a restraining order and with this recent challenge from Maëlle Jacques, things could change in a hurry, and we're going to keep our eye on it." The IOC is looking for a new president right now. Thomas Bach, the current president of the International Olympic Committee, stepped down after the 2024 Olympics. The field is an interesting field. Some in the IOC are pushing for Zimbabwe Minister for Sport and Culture, Christy Coventry. She's also a former Olympic champion and has worked closely with the IOC from her position in Zimbabwe. But the bookies' favorite center on two very important names who run some of the biggest governing bodies in world sport. David Lapontier, the head of the Union Cycliste Internationale, and the head of World Athletics, Lord Sebastian Coe. Now, Coe is seen as the odds-on favorite at this point, which makes transgender people, especially those in sports, kind of nervous. Coe, during his tenure as the head of World Athletics, was instrumental in tightening the archaic and somewhat racist Caster Semenya rule and put a blanket ban on transgender women in women's track and field last year. Not over actual data, but over hearsay and, in some ways, political pressure. A reminder, Sebastian Coe is also a former MP with the Tory party in the UK. Now, the UCI's Lapontier put forth the UCI's elite ban on transgender women, or as I like to call it, the Austin Killips rule, because it was put on 2 weeks after Austin Killips, American road racer and cyclocross contender, won a race in 2023. This ban also ripped off USA BMX Olympian Chelsea Wolfe from a shot at Paris this past year, and it also harmed British track and road cyclist Emily Bridges, who probably would have made Team GB had she gotten the opportunity. The IOC has been here before in regards to the head of the IOC who believes in discrimination at all costs and at all times. His name was Avery Brundage. Ask yourself, International Olympic Committee, do you really need another one? Because you have a field full of them, namely Pontier and Sebastian Coe. Hashtag just saying. Some good news to report. Congratulations, even in a tough defeat for Soraya Saber. New South Wrestling Women's World Championship match against Kenzie Page over the weekend fell a little short. She was trying to be the first transgender woman to win a New South Wrestling Women's World Championship title. Fell a little short, but Saber said on her Twitter this morning, she'll be back. And we look forward to when you have another title shot. Also, some good news from one of my favorite people in sport. And I think one of the coolest people in sport. Long distance runner Cal Calamia, the defending non-binary division champion of the New York City Marathon. Well, they announced over the weekend that they're competing in the Berlin Marathon coming up and will be a part of the Berlin Marathon's newly inaugurated non-binary division, or what they call the diverse division. Now, there's a little hitch to it, though. There's still a question over whether this division will have official results and if it has awards. And that's something that Calamia isn't taking lying down. With more on that, here's Cal Calamia.
I am stoked to finally tell y'all that I am running the Berlin Marathon on September 29th. It has been a long time coming. I've been urging the race to add a non-binary division for over 2 years. They have since been credited with doing so, having added a division called Divers. Getting a bib was its own battle. Whether or not the race will acknowledge top non-binary participants is still up in the air. You can help. Comment, share, and or head to the caption to ping the Berlin Marathon, as well as SCC events, letting them know that you care about non-binary runners and want overall winners to be acknowledged equitably. I've been training like crazy to crush this race, and the only missing puzzle piece is a commitment from Berlin to celebrate and uplift non-binary athletes, rather than delegitimizing the division by erasing us from the results and the podium. The fight for trans inclusion in sports is worldwide. 11 days. We got this. Stay posted right here for updates. Love y'all.
You heard the champ, Berlin Marathon. Do right by the non-binary athletes. And oh, if you put some Deutsch marks down on it, make sure the winner gets the check. I'm just saying. And in our spotlight tonight, 2 weeks ago, Valentina Petrillo, Italian para-athlete, transgender woman, and one of the fastest people in the world, stepped on the track in Paris, stepped into the starter's blocks. After 13 national championships and a long fight for the opportunity to compete authentically. It wasn't so much the winning or the result. She took part, and it made all the difference.
Sono felicissima di essere alla Pride House. Questo è un posto confortevole, è il posto che tutti noi vorremmo sognare, è il posto che ci fa sentire bene, e dalla Pride House speriamo che ci sia un World House e quindi non ci sia solo un piccolo spazio ma ci sia un grande spazio. Invito tutti a venire alla Pride House per condividere questo momento importante all'interno dello sport di eccellenza, all'interno dello sport olimpico e paraolimpico. Siamo di fronte a un cambio della generazione, siamo di fronte a una rivoluzione e noi vogliamo essere partecipi di questa rivoluzione. Io ci sono, ho messo la mia faccia, sono stato allo Stade de France, io ce l'ho fatta e se ce l'ho fatta io quanti altri ci possono fare. Io voglio che tutti noi dobbiamo sentirci liberi di essere e siamo, ognuno di noi ha le sue unicità e quindi viva lo sport, viva noi stessi e continuiamo a sognare, perché sognare è bello e nessuno deve mai interrompere i nostri sogni di vita.
Ecco.
Grazie.
Bravo!
And joining us now at Transposition Sports is the woman of the hour, one of the women of the Paralympics and one of the women in what has been quite a year, Valentina Petrillo. First, congratulazioni, Valentina, on an excellent performance at the Paralympics. Has it even sunk in yet that you finally got to compete in the Paralympics?
Ti chiede, intanto ti fa le congratulazioni, ti chiede se hai già realizzato che sei stata alle Paralimpiadi.
Grazie per i complimenti. No, non ho ancora realizzato appieno. È passato quasi 2 settimane dall'evento e quindi ci vuole un po'
It
di tempo,
hasn't sunk in yet. She's slowly
per
realizing that it was a very
rivivere dentro di me
important,
tutte le sensazioni che ho vissuto
arriving point.
per il momento
So
no,
she's
però
slowly taking it in.
sicuramente sono consapevole che è stato un traguardo importante.
Going back to your first race, first heat at the Paralympics, what was going through your mind when you settled into the starters blocks and ready to start that very first race after all you've been through all these years to get there?
Right. Dopo tutti questi anni che hai dovuto per arrivare a questo punto, che cosa avevi in mente quando stavi ai blocchi di partenza della prima gara alle Paralimpiadi? In her mind was going through her life, all the things she had to give up for this achievement, and awareness that she might be saving the lives of many people with this process that she went through. It might be an important step for many other people.
What's your thoughts and feelings on how you performed at the Paralympics?
Cosa pensi, le sensazioni e i pensieri di come hai gareggiato alle Olimpiadi, della tua performance?
Sì, non sono pienamente
She's not completely satisfied with what
non
she
credo di
did.
essere arrivata al
She
mio
thinks she hasn't
limite
reached
fisico.
her
Credo
physical
che ci sono dei
limit.
margini
She's
per
still
migliorare
can improve,
e
especially in the
soprattutto
400
nei
meters.
400 metri,
And so she
laddove
feels
mi sono
like,
comunque
she can push
espressa meglio
more.
che sui 200 metri.
Does that mean we're going to see you at World Para Athletic Championships next year?
Oh, questo vuol dire che sarai ai campionati paralimpici l'anno prossimo? L'anno prossimo.
Io vivo tutto quello che sarà il mio futuro.
So she's now living all her days and thinking about the future. She's going a little bit day by day. She's not ruling out anything about the future, so she's going to try to participate in the various sports events from now on. And if this brings about participation in the next Paralympic Games, could be, she's not ruling out anything, so she will participate anywhere she can.
Standard di questi anni.
You've been pushing for this moment since 2018. Was there ever a point between then and now that you thought, Valentina, this is not going to happen? Was there ever a point where you doubted that you would have gotten to Paris?
Ok, dice che hai lavorato su questo obiettivo fin dal 2018. C'è stato un momento in cui hai pensato, Valentina, non ce la farai e questo non avverrà e che non saresti arrivata a Parigi? Che poi
Sì,
prima volevi andare a Tokyo, scusa, sì.
sì, in pratica tutti i giorni pensavo questo, in realtà ho realizzato che sarei andata a Parigi solo quando ero sull'aereo.
This is crazy. She has thought that she was not going to make it up until the very last day, up until the time that she was on the plane for Paris. That's amazing.
Did I hear that right? You left for Paris still thinking this could still get taken from me.
Quando sei partita per Parigi pensavi ancora che poteva succedere qualcosa che te l'avrebbe fatta, eh?
Sì.
Yeah, yeah. She was still doubting it. Yeah.
No, in realtà non sono mai, in realtà appunto, tornando alla domanda di prima, non ho mai realizzato.
All along, she was waiting, fearing that something was going to happen and that was going to prevent her from running. And so she didn't realize the whole thing was happening, and she's not realizing it either now. So it's still, like that famous dream come true.
L'ho sempre avuta.
I was in tears when you entered the track for your first race. I was watching. I got up at 4 a.m. to watch it. And I was in tears because you were there. You finally got there. And that's all I could think was like, she got there. I woke up my neighbors screaming and crying, just happy because it was happening. One thing I want to.
Okay, let me translate that. Dice che si è svegliata alle 4 di mattina per vedere la tua gara, ha svegliato anche tutti i vicini, i suoi amici del vicinato e stava piangendo perché era commossa, dice guarda, vedi, ce l'ha fatta, c'è arrivata e quindi...
E tu sai, Carle, come si dice? E tu sai cosa vuol dire esserci arrivati?
Carlei, sì. And you know what it means to arrive there at that point. Yes. It's incredible. Right.
Well, how did other athletes, other competitors receive you?
Come ti hanno ricevuto gli altri atleti, i tuoi competitor?
Allora, diciamo che
So most athletes, most competitors, actually all of them, except for one, they didn't relate to Valentina at all. There was one Iranian athlete who was very nice to her, both in the call room before, after the race, and also in the declarations that she has given to the newspapers and the press. So she was really nice. At the Olympic Village, it was not easy to connect with other people, but this Iranian runner was really, really good. So she wants to thank her for being so open towards her.
There's somebody in this interview we've not mentioned. Kind of want to wait on it. A couple of women in general. First,
Dice che c'è qualcuno in questa intervista che non abbiamo nominato e che voleva un attimo aspettare. 2 donne. Who are they?
First, J.K. Rowling.
Ah, la Rowling.
Now, now, I read your interview in the Times on what you said. Looking back, looking on it now, do you still believe? Do you even believe that she just opened her mouth about you, let alone called you a cheat?
Allora, adesso pensandoci, riesci a credere che lei diciamo, si è presa la briga di parlare di te e anche di chiamarti imbroglione?
Sì, sicuramente mi ha sorpresa il fatto che una così grande scrittrice possa
She's
perdere
amazed
tempo
that
con,
J.K.
con le
Rowling
tematiche
could
LGBT
waste her
anche
time,
estese, si fosse preoccupare dei
thinking
bagni
about
che frequentiamo,
Valentina
oppure che
performance
possa
and
chiamarmi
especially
coglione
talking about the bathrooms and all those things and calling her a cheat and comparing her to Lance Armstrong.
Di Louis Armstrong che
There's another woman, rather prominent, probably even more prominent than J.K. Rowling. That's Giorgia Meloni, your prime minister.
Sono Giorgia, sono una donna, sono una madre, sono italiana, sono cristiana, non me lo toglierete.
Needless to say, she will not be attending any prides anytime soon. If you got the opportunity to sit down with Prime Minister Meloni and talk about your life and your journey, what would you tell her?
Che cosa diresti a Giorgia Meloni, un'altra donna prominente, forse sicuramente più importante della Rowling e che però non parteciperà probabilmente a nessuna Pride nei prossimi mesi o anni? Che se tu fossi vicino a lei, che cosa le vorresti raccontare della tua esperienza?
vorrei dirle che comunque noi non facciamo paura, che noi non vogliamo fare nessuna rivoluzione, che noi vogliamo solo che avere il nostro spazio e
So she would like to tell her that
che ogni persona merita.
we are not scary people and we don't want to make any kind of revolution. We want to be accepted and live peacefully. And so she's asking them to stop,
Ricade su di
you
noi
know,
ed è già difficile di per
being
sé la nostra
violent, I would say, you know, towards trans people, because everything that is done on trans people is a problem for affirmation and for peaceful living.
Right now, I'm showing our viewers a very special picture. It was a picture of you after your race hugging your son, who was in the stands.
Quando hai abbracciato Lorenzo.
What did that moment mean to you? I know it was right after the race, and I could see the disappointment in your face, but at that moment, what does that mean to you just to hug your son?
Tantissimo, tantissimo perché se c'è una rinuncia che ho fatto è stato proprio è stato lui che ha fatto delle rinunce inconsapevolmente perché le ha dovute accettare e quindi mi sentivo in dovere con mio figlio di restituirgli qualcosa, anche se comunque il tempo non glielo potrò restituire, però per me che lui sia venuto allo stadio è importante perché comunque ha capito il papà perché tutti questi anni diciamo l'ha messo in secondo piano e perché tante volte lui mi diceva papi non andare a fare allenamenti e io dicevo no Lorenzo devo andare e quindi quel momento è importante perché io mi sono liberata, tanto è vero che io in quel momento sto piangendo a dirotto e ho continuato poi a piangere per ore perché io sapevo che lì erano finite le mie Paralimpiadi perché sapevo che comunque nei 400 avevo più chance che nei 200 e quindi è un momento importante, cioè brava Carley che ha individuato questa cosa, molto importante.
Sì. So she's saying that her son actually over the years has given up many things because the situation asked for many sacrifices, not only to Valentina but also to him, and she's not going to be able to give him back the time that this time that has passed, but the fact of being there for him was very important, and of course was very important for her that he was there, because finally her son could understand why she's been training all these years, but she was always, going to train, and he could understand that, what the result of this whole thing was. And so during that moment, she says that you did nicely to pull up this picture, because it's a very important moment. And in that moment, she was crying very strongly, and she kept crying for the next few hours. So it's been an important moment for her and her son.
Valentina was also important for many of us. Again, seeing you just getting out on that track left me in tears, but also left me inspired to keep going. And I hope you do keep going. Grazie, Valentina. Congratulazioni, Valentina. Thank you for being on Transposition Sports with us this week.
Dice, ti ringrazia e dice che questo momento è stato importante anche per tante persone che ti hanno seguito e che hanno pianto anche nel vederti in questa situazione, quindi grazie per aver fatto quello che hai fatto e per essere su questo programma questa settimana.
Grazie a te, a tutti voi. Io veramente sono una persona fortunata perché ho raggiunto il mio sogno. So che non è semplice, però so che anche che è stato importante, perché se io ce l'ho fatta, tante altre persone ce la possono fare. E per me correre su quella pista davanti a 90.000 persone alle Paralimpiadi, su quella pista viola, è stato qualcosa di incredibile, e vi posso assicurare che il vostro affetto da ogni parte del mondo, chi mi voleva bene, era tutto concentrato in quel 2 settembre, quella data magica e storica, e era tutto lì. Tant'è vero che il 2 settembre è stato compiuto, tra virgolette, un miracolo, perché fare un 58,35 la sera dopo 6 ore, 7 ore, ripetersi con un 57,58 è davvero qualcosa di incredibile che è avvenuto. E quindi io ho veramente sentito tutta l'energia, e quindi ringrazio lei e ringrazio questo spazio e per l'affetto che mi avete dimostrato in tutti questi anni. E da parte mia c'è l'impegno quantomeno a provarci per Los Angeles, a provarci, ci proviamo, non ci poniamo limiti, ci proviamo, poi ci saranno tante cose che succederanno in questi 4 anni, però io ci sto, io ci provo, poi vedremo. Grazie, un abbraccio, così ti abbraccio di persona.
Okay, she's saying that if she has done it, other people can do it also. So this is an important message. And when she was in that athletic terrain with all those 90,000 people around, she was feeling the affection of all the people who love her around the world. So she really perceived, the good vibes coming from all over the world, and that September 2nd was really a miracle. She did 2 races during one day and made her timing better at the second race, so close to the world record. So everything was a miracle, and she's thanking you, and she will keep trying, and even for the LA in 2028, she will try.
Special thanks to Eliza Morighetti, the director of Five Nanamoli, Cinque Nanamoli, the documentary film on Valentina Petrillo, for providing the translation services for this interview and for really making this interview possible in many ways. And thank you, Valentina. Grazie, Valentina, for your courage, your persistence, and your heart to keep getting up, keep fighting on, and showing up to Paris and competing with honor. I'll tell you this, should you take another shot at the Paralympics in 2028 in Los Angeles, sprinting hard at age 55. I will be in those stands cheering for you with a trans flag in one hand and an Italian flag in the other. Congratulazioni, Valentina, and grazie, Valentina. For Transposition Sports, I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing, Carly. Thank you
Now
so
that
much.
was certainly worth it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was we had a bit of a raid while that was going down too, and it yeah, I think it worked out to our benefit to have that exclusive interview that you got right there when when we had all the new people come in. So thank you so much for providing top-notch content as always. Carly gets us exclusive interviews on the regular. Last week we had exclusive interview with you might know who this is. What is it? Alana McLaughlin.
Yeah,
No.
we had Alana on last week. We had
Mm-hmm.
Alana who's doing the rounds right now because Unfightable just ended its limited theatrical run in New York. Now the scene shifts to the West Coast. It's going to be opening in Hollywood starting tomorrow through the 26th. So
yeah, it should be better now.
But
oh my goodness, yeah, Unfightable. That's
although I'll also say that Cinque Animale is also an excellent documentary. I got a chance to see a screener today after the interview. It's really well done. Alyssa Morghetti and her team actually started the project in 2019. They did a lot of photography during the COVID crisis. And one thing about the COVID crisis in 2020, it hit Italy was one of the most hardest hit.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
By the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
do you remember that? Do you remember that when pardon me, a number of it might have been in Rome, where people would get out on their balconies and serenade the streets?
Yes.
That was one of the most unbelievably just people can do marvelous things when they're challenged.
Yes, they can. And one of the marvelous things I saw was seeing Valentina never giving up. Never giving up. She was slated to go to Tokyo, but then she got reclassified, something that happens in parasport. I mean, reclassification can happen anytime. She was reclassified, so she had to scramble, did run the qualifying time, but the Italian Federation decided not to take her to Tokyo. And some of that has to do with the reclassification. Most of it has to do with, frankly, transphobia. It's no secret that Italy is one of the more anti-LGBTQ nations of the NATO alliance. Mainly because of right now who's running the country. Your coalition government led by Giorgia Meloni. And Georgia, that's right. You heard that's the viral rant that she had during the campaign. I am Georgia. I am a woman. I am a woman. I am a mother. I am a Christian. I'm an Italian. It would be more accurate. She also added, I'm a fascist.
Indeed.
I mean, think of don't be in a same sex marriage and have a child in Italy. The Italian government will take the kid away from one parent.
Kitty sighting.
Kitty cat.
They will take. Hey Kirby, Also just just an announcement that when we start back in October at the new place, Kirby will have a segment.
That's awesome. We need
Kirby's
more.
gonna-
We need, well, you know,
Kirby's gonna have a segment.
as long as it's not,
Well, you see-
as long as it's not Kirby on the barbecue, we're fine.
No, Kirby's gonna have a segment where Kirby's going to pick the NFL games with cat teams in them.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah,
Who
because
better?
Kirby roots for all the cat names. Kirby roots for the cat names. She said what she said. She roots for the cat names. In fact, she's trying to get a petition together for the NFL to restructure the league so that there is an NFL cat division. So that all the teams of the cat
All
name
right.
one division, so
think-
that it guarantees at least one cat team can have a shot at the Super Bowl.
I think
So,
cats
like
are
the-
probably more suited for the NFL than the NBA or the WNBA for that matter. Whatever.
The only problem is
Just
everybody
thinking.
in football,
They've got
everybody wants
leaping
dogs.
ability, but
Yeah. I mean, well, actually, she wants professional mousing to become a thing.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing.
hell.
That's one thing my kitty was saying throughout the Olympics and Paralympics. You have all these great athletes. What'd you say, Kirby? You have all these great athletes. Not one of them gets a mouse.
You know, they do have terrier competitions where terriers catch a lot of
Yeah,
mice.
they have the agility trials, and not just for terriers. That's for every. I mean, I've seen bulldogs do agility trials. What's wild is seeing a corgi do an agility trial.
Yeah,
corgi.
Corgis are good
Yeah,
for
a
that.
corgi.
Very
All
good
them
for
little
that.
dogs were
Golden
bred for-
retrievers, on the other hand, no.
Little terriers are rat dogs. That's what
Terriers
they
are
were
rat
bred for.
dogs.
That's what they were bred for, is to catch rats.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. That's with their short legs, right? To go down.
And right
into
now,
the-
Kitty is making a point to mark mark her territory.
Brilliant.
All the bases be Kirby's.
Well, girls, I tell you what, I really do want to thank the line for the raid tonight. That was awesome to
Oh,
see
yeah,
that many
no
people
kidding.
coming in. And for our, again, exclusive interviews only here on the Transpositions for a lot of this stuff. So really great guest as well. We had Luxander on earlier. If you missed them, it was
No, I want to. I'm thinking Aiden Hart. Thank you for the shout out.
Arden.
Thanks, Aiden Hart, for the crossover.
Arden.
Thanks, Arden. Thanks, Arden, for the shout out. Arden Hart, thank you again for the cross promotion. We appreciate
Yeah,
it. 'Cause-
and thanks Jimmy Snow for
Yeah.
for making that happen. Jimmy,
Yeah,
it's
allowing
it's
that redirect.
it's Jimmy's operation. Great shows over there, by the way. It's Transatlantic Call-In show on Thursdays. They were late. They're usually at 3 Eastern, 3 in the afternoon Eastern time, but they had to reschedule, I think, because Josie, either Josie or Ben had a scheduling problem, but
But it was Josie and
worked
Ben
out
tonight.
great.
So if you missed that, go back and watch it, because it was Josie and Ben tonight.
Yeah, it was Josie and Ben on Takis, and also the Sunday show and After Dark on Sunday, and Skep Talk on Monday evenings at 7. Chewed Gum Tuesday evenings at 7, and the Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty and guests also at 7. So lots of good content over there, and we really appreciate the support we've gotten from Jimmy and the team over there. Arden, Matt, Forrest, Shannon Q, Paula Gia, lots and lots of really good people who have been really good friends to me over a few years. So yeah, throw them some love.
Yeah, appreciate you guys, all y'all. But when it comes to sports this week, I thought for sure one of y'all would pick up this Soraya Saber story, the first trans woman in the NWA, I think it is. Did you see this?
What was that?
Am I too quiet still?
No,
Yeah,
what
you're
was that
pretty
again?
quiet, Bree.
Okay.
No, Bree, you were talking about the wrestling story.
I can boost you.
Yeah,
we did pick that up.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah.
No, we did. In fact, we ran a highlight of the match.
Excellent.
Oh.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, that was in there.
Soraya Saber lost that match, but it was a very competitive match. It was a well fought match, and you haven't heard last of Saber by a long shot. She's a fan favorite. She will get other opportunities heading down, but once again, more and more. I mean, again, it just shows where the inclusion is, and I mean, it is the sports that are the so-called fringe sports. They're the ones that are ahead of the curve on inclusion. They're ahead of the curve on getting the rules right. They're ahead of the curve. They're ahead of the curve on speaking out for the athletes. They're ahead of the curve of saying no to the nonsense. I mean, for example,
I had a lot of hope. I had a lot of hope for sailing getting ahead of the curve, but sailing is dominated by some very conservative folk and some very timid folk in terms of let's not rock the boat issues. But I think it may change.
Well,
I'm sure going to try.
Sailing's going to be influenced heavily by who ends up running the IOC. Who is the IOC president? And
I wanted to talk to you about that.
That's where we are right now, right?
I mean, that's going to be the big question. Who runs the IOC? And
well, Sebastian Coe can step off.
Well, the thing is, though, there's really, when it comes down to it, you have two candidates that are considered the front runners. Kirsty Coventry. There's a big push to have the first woman president of the IOC. Thomas Bach has endorsed her, has formally endorsed her, and he's the outgoing man. He's the outgoing president. But people are going to look at the political acumen and look at what he's done for world athletics. And a lot of people think believe it's formidable. And in some ways it has been, but still you're going to have a competing track tour next year because of the issues inherent in the Diamond League and in world athletics. That's what's leading Michael Johnson to start Grand Slam track. But I would not be surprised, given the political connections that he has, that Sebastian Coe would not be the IOC president. But it is the Olympics after all. It is the Olympic movement. Stranger things have happened. I mean, remember, we all thought we were going to get a 100th anniversary Olympics in Athens, and instead we got Atlanta.
Yes. I don't know. Sports is weird. If you tune into this channel, you'll hear Carly and I talking about inside baseball, which is, there's a metaphor for you. A whole lot of behind the scenes machinations go on, and sports is like any other realm. There's so much politics involved that it's it's a little microcosm, and that's why sports does matter a little bit, even though people say it doesn't. It's camel's nose under the tent for trans issues and a lot of other issues, including access to people with that's what the Paralympics is all about. All kinds of weird.
The Soraya Sparks story, though, that does make, or Soraya Saber story, does bring to mind, like, we probably would have heard a lot more about it if she had won her ballot, right? Like, we would have, It'd have been all over the news.
Oh, fuck yes.
If she had won that match.
Oh yeah, what if she would have won? It would have been like she cheated. Because after all, you know after all we do is cheat, right? And
follow the rules to a T, and then you're called a cheater anyway.
Yeah, we cheat and and don't forget we trick men.
Yeah.
That's why in my segment I wasn't going on about the win. I was going on about the race committee thing. Not 2 weekends ago, but last weekend. When all of those competitors were relying on me to set a fair course. And all of the people that were involved in order to make that happen was 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people on my race committee team to set up that course, to make sure the competitors had square lines, square courses, all of that. People were relying on me to do that. And gender and trans issues had nothing to do with it. I don't get a trophy. But to me, personally, that's a huge win. When I walk down the row of people getting hauled out and I say, "How was it for you? How was the racing? Anything we can do better? Anything we can make it better for you so that you'll come back and do it next year?" And everybody says, "That was great racing. Thank you so much." That's a win for me. It won't get covered in the press. It'll be remembered by the guys from Coral Gables, Florida, who towed their boat all the way to Maine to race in this regatta, and they'll be back next year. That's a win. Carly, you're muted.
Yeah, it's got me muted.
Trying to unmute Carly, but I don't think I can.
Yeah. I don't know if we have that ability from here.
I'm not sure I have.
My cat is trying to take over my desk.
The cat has got Carly's tongue.
No, the cat is taking my desk over right now.
It's like, let's start this segment now.
No, she's just like, you need to give me attention.
Yeah.
I am your kitten, and I need pets. Need them now, need them now, need them now, now. I am your kitty. You need some pets. I need some pets. I need them now. I am your kitty, and I own you. Kitty meow, kitty meow, kitty meow, meow. Ow! You spit me a little bit.
There you go. That's the perfect ending.
Kitty go. Shut the fuck up.
The song. It's like, enough singing. Enough singing, Mom.
So chat. I had to get it. I had a little thing, and I'm a little bit jealous, and so I'm gonna let out some jealousy here. I saw a lot of that right at the beginning of the stream. It's, "Oh, Brie, you look so lovely tonight. Oh, Ember, what a wonderful presentation." And I'm sitting here going, "Carly's beautiful. I'm not ugly." Anyway, not your fault, Chad, but So you're gonna, if you brought some chewing gum, spread it around to everybody.
Yeah, let's be nice to everybody. We're all beautiful people in our community. It's nobody here is we don't let people who are ugly on this show, and I judge people's ugliness by what's inside and what they have to say. So only beautiful people.
That means J.K. Rowling's pretty ugly.
Yeah, exactly. Only beautiful
don't think
people
so. I
come
think she's
on the.
relatively attractive, but she is ugly. It's the
No,
beauty's only skin deep, but ugly goes all the way to the
Exactly.
bone.
All the way to the bone.
Oh yeah, all right.
Sometimes if you stick
Pragmatic.
around and come back, every now and then Steph will show pictures of
yeah,
her youth when
yeah.
when
Well,
she was
I can actually do that.
yeah, we were talking about that earlier
we were effing around with that earlier, weren't we?
Because me and Carly both were on Threads sharing like transition pictures, like this is before and after. Carly,
You see all these
magic.
youngsters. All these youngsters here have the advantage of having phones that can take pictures of themselves. And I wasn't blessed with that. So the photographs I have of myself are from long, long ago, or maybe not so very long ago, but I didn't, selfies weren't a thing. But here's the best I can do for y'all. All right. I can. All right. Am I in here? Yeah. All right. So that's there. And if I move this up,
Oh, now you got to
right. All right. Now I need to
disappear. You got to melt away.
now I gotta disappear.
And here we go. We're gonna take Steph back in time.
Back in time.
Woo! Look at that. Young teenage. How old were you? Maybe I'm gonna guess.
17.
I'm gonna guess you were. Dang it! You should let me guess. I was gonna guess 21.
Sorry, you asked, and so I said I had it set up a little bit better, but
yeah. Oh my gosh, you're a baby. Look at them baby cheeks. You were so adorable. I love your hair.
I learned the truth at 17 that life was made for beauty queens. Dreams were all they gave for free to ugly duckling girls like me. Genessean at 17. You don't know the song? Go listen to it. It's always resonated. Like you don't know how hard. It was out when I was 17 and before I was 17.
How convenient. So it was like a coming of age song for you.
Yeah, but it's just I don't want to get into the whole sad bit, but damn, it sucks being a trans kid.
Yeah,
it does. It just does.
Yeah, it does. It's hard being a trans kid. It's even harder when you're a trans kid, but you can't express it.
You stay in the closet. Yeah, that was my childhood for sure. Absolutely.
Oh, that was definitely my childhood.
That was most of us of a certain age. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not many of us had the opportunity to come out, and if you did have the opportunity to come out in the 1980s, it was unless you had a lot of money or were very well insulated, it was hard.
It doesn't work out so hot when your family is deeply steeped in the Methodist tradition, no matter how progressive in 1957. No, not so good. Didn't work out well. What? What are you talking about? That's not
they had a word for progressive back in the 1950s. They had a word for that. Communist. You're a communist. You're a communist.
I'm a little bit younger than you guys, but I went to school during the Matthew Shepard era. All right, so
Okay,
being,
you were in high school in the 90s.
Yeah, being a queer kid, no, I was deep hiding in my closet. I was terrified in the Midwest in my closet. I'll tell you that.
I
Anybody
relate
would
to that
find
one.
out. I was like, oh my gosh, if someone would even accuse me of being a girl or something, I'd get all defensive about it because, I knew who I was inside, but I didn't want anybody to know because I knew what that meant that I would get from them.
Mm-hmm. You know what it means. So
Carly's in Nebraska, right? You're Nebraska.
Yeah,
So,
you get it. Oh, and you had to be a person of color dealing with that shit too. Damn, I feel you, sis.
being the black part of it, that was hard enough as it is, because you got to deal with that and all this, and the gender was not even thought of. Certainly not thought of going to high school in the 1980s. Certainly not thought of. And then going into the workforce after college in the 1990s, where people lost their damn minds off of Ellen and Will and Grace.
Right.
I mean, we lost our people. I mean, the Golden Girls had a pro gay episode, and people lost their damn minds. I mean, that was few and far between. I mean, the fact is, I mean, that's something you didn't. It was verboten. You didn't talk about it unless you saw it on Jerry Springer.
And then it was a big shame for everybody in your family.
Oh,
there's still people in my family that act that way about. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody in particular, but I just had a funeral in my family this last weekend, and
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and some people just put your eyes back in your head, I guess, is all I can say.
No, it gets me is the people when you come to the functions and they tell you that you want the attention when you don't want any. You want no attention. But everybody else is drawing attention to you because of their nonsense.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a fly on the wall and say goodbye to my grandpa. People make it awkward, but we come along. Anyway, you ladies about ready to close things out tonight?
Yeah, let's close the shop for this week.
Let's do the big wrap.
All right. So, anybody got anything else coming up this week? I know I got Cryptic Corner tomorrow night. Let me see what I have on that. Boom, 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 boom. This will take just a second to pull up. That's going to be... There we go. Okay, so tomorrow night on Cryptic Corner, we have... Oh, is it... Oh, yes, the Moa and the Dodo Bird. So, yeah, come check that out. We're going to see if they're still alive. Be fun. And then Saturday is Live from the Hive. I'll see you there. All right, Steph, you're up.
Yeah, I'm maybe absent from the world of the YouTubes for a bit. I'm not really sure. I'm looking for an apartment. I have been for the last month and a half, to no avail at this point. So I don't know where I'm going to alight. I'm hoping to be able to stream some. I won't be able to be actively producing a good deal, I don't think, unless something miraculous happens between now and a week from Monday. So I'm in dire straits, and like many of us are. But I love you all. I hope to see you soon. So I don't really have anything coming up aside from concentrating on packing away my sewing machines and sending them to Vermont, and packing up bits and pieces of my life and putting them into boxes and bags. All
I
of
can relate
that.
to that one. I'm in the middle of moving. I get that.
No, I know.
And I'm on the
But
cusp
at least
of
you know where
moving.
you're going, and I don't. So I'm in a. If anybody
I know
wants
you.
to send me love of any sort, monetary, emotional, whatever, I could
You know
really
what?
fucking use it right
A
now.
love offering for Stephanie would be good right now. A love offering would for Stephanie be good right now. And you know what? We like to type the jingles, but we love the love that folds even better. Hashtag just saying.
Just saying.
I guess.
All right. Thank you
But
for
again, I
joining
love
us
you
tonight,
all.
guys.
Thank you.
We
Yeah.
love you back.
Oh, but before I almost forgot, Carly, you got anything coming up this week? I didn't mean to leave you in the dust.
No,
there.
just
There you go.
like I said, we're gonna take a week off from TransPosition Sports to prepare the new Char Sports One Sports Control, the newest. The new studio. We're gonna be building it up. We're gonna put we're gonna put some nice stuff in it. I'm thinking canopy bed for it. Everyone should have a princess canopy bed once in their life. No, maybe you know what? I may just lean all the way into trans girl culture. Blahaj might make an appearance alongside Kirby.
Look,
Kirby?
look. I don't have Blanche, and I really don't. And other acquisition, I'm not. Keen on, but I do have my.
I've
do
already.
have my monkey. I do have my monkey.
See, you have a
I have my
stuffy. See,
monkey.
if you have any
I have.
stuffies,
Yeah. I have my monkey. This came
you've
from
leaned into
HR.
trans girl. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all
HR is on Twitch, and she's wonderful. And the cool thing about the monkey is the monkey has I can stroke the monkey, which is always fun. Because I've missed that for 27 years, but not really.
Somebody, Bree, you have a plushy shark? Are you?
This is my Blahai.
But I can insert the monkeys. I can insert my hand into the monkey. I don't
Right
know
now,
if that's
Kirby's
altogether
jealous because
that much
Kirby's
fun.
like,
And the monkey has a red asshole, which is awesome.
Meanwhile, my cat's all jealous because, like, what about cats?
Cat's
What
like,
about
are you
cats?
about done, Mom? You promised me some belly rubs.
Yeah.
All right.
We
Yeah.
got to get
Let's
out of
wrap
here
up.
so Carly can adequately address the cat.
Yeah, thank you for joining us tonight on the Transpositions. Really appreciate everybody for sticking around for the show. We had Alexander at the beginning. It was great to have him on. We had some good news with Ember. I brought you some updates about the French First Lady. Steph brought us some victory, some personal victory, and then Carly brought us a freaking exclusive tonight. Oh my gosh, that was a great exclusive. All right, thank you so much, and come back next week. We do this every week. Every week at that's going to be 8 Eastern, 7 Central. All right.
0 hour UTC. Figure it out. Do the math. It's all good. And we've got some really great guests in the pipeline, and really hoping that you'll stick with us, boost us, tell your friends, subscribe, make it happen. We're really trying to make a difference here.
Yeah, let's
and we love you for being with us.
We got a mission here. Thank you for helping us realize it. All right. Night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Bye.